DANMACHI, which is a nickname for the show, is a light novel series written by Fujinome Mori and is honestly a lot bigger than I initially thought it was. Having 4 seasons, the fourth of which having 2 cores, a movie, spin-off anime, 17 light novels with roughly 9 million sales, and a solid reputation, while only being harmed by the fact that the series' real name is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Oh hey, didn't see you there. Did you know it's a bad idea to make the first question you see in a given day your philosophy presentation? Cause I learned that mistake. Do you think it's morally incorrect to court women in a place of combat follows our main character Bel Cornell as he wants to become more heroic, being taught the fundamentals of adventure from his mysterious grandfather, while he tries to meet those expectations that he has seen. Like the exact phrase of meet women in a place called dungeon, we will get to what that is in a second, but to be an adventurer, you must be a member of a familia, which is essentially your traditional fantasy guild but led by anime-fied versions of deities from real-world mythologies. Which is perfect for me because I only recognize religions of anime adaptations. But let's talk main cast members, like our before-mentioned Bel Cornell. In terms of light novel protagonists, I would say for the most part he fits the bill. He is not heavy at all, but he has that same good old strong moral compass and wants to save everyone where he can. But I do really like the angle it's coming from for him. Now at first, he is pretty cliche, oddly being specifically motivated to save characters just because they are girls. But I get the feeling that, well, that's the main personality trait to be motivated by, so that got scrapped. Don't worry, I'm here to help. Wait, what's your zodiac sign?
I'm a Virgo, please!
There was nothing else I could have done. I would say that trait didn't last past season 1, and I like how he was tweaked though to be more in general person who wants to be heroic. But I most of all really like that he clearly displays nervousness for the actions that he has to take to save someone. Whether that be because it can be scary or there are consequences that will follow on his familia, it's a small thing but it really makes him feel a lot more admirable as a character. He does think twice about things. He just comes to the same conclusion that badass fighting is better than going home and eating baked potatoes. But hey, what's a familia without a deity? If there's a character that you recognize from this show, even if you aren't familiar with, do you think it's morally acceptable to use a dangerous location as a meeting spot? It's Hestia. Now what about this character would the anime community easily talk about? I don't know, probably their hair ties. But she's a goddess of the Hestia familia, which at the start of the series is just her and Bel. I do like the grassroots feeling they have. This isn't some grand place with a god that can do anything and a character that trips and falls into being the coolest at first. They start with Bel not being the best, or well, good at all, and Hestia quite literally working a part-time job while they more or less get off the ground. I think she can be a bit one-dimensional at times, due to her biggest personality trait being in love with Bel. Oh, hold on. But I don't shy away from the conversation of a mortal person dating an immortal person. But my main issue from this dynamic comes from my confusion of what I'm supposed to be rooting for when this character Eyes Wallenstein is added to the equation. And by confusion, I don't just mean confusion on how to spell her name. So like, Eyes is kinda the love interest to Bel, even being the source of one of his skills that as long as he has feelings for her, his skills increase faster. But it feels weird because their relationship develops, but so does the one with Hestia. But they don't feel at odds to each other, or even really interact with each other. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to root for, or if there isn't a side to take. And a lot of the other, oh, they have feelings for him characters also follow the same route of, yeah, this is a trait we're gonna give this character. I mean, it's not like anything offensive or bad, it's just weird because it felt like they could have had something with it, but a random female character will just have that trait and that's the end of it. I had to fill out my resume somehow. Like, the interactions are fine, they're wholesome, but the only thing that devalues it are the fact that there are so many other of the same interactions on the same level, and it just feels weird because it's not like they're at odds with each other. Like, I thought this was gonna be a way to farm some easy drama or tension between characters, but it just doesn't go anywhere necessarily. And it doesn't come up too often, and any character a part of this harem, or let's actually add up the counter, there we go. It's not like this weird love interest thing is the only thing these characters have. Like, they're perfectly fine on their own, without this weird dynamic, like the waitress at the tavern or the supporter Lily Ruka, all have either their own personalities or own arcs, like overcoming alcoholism in a fantasy world. These isekai are getting weirder and weirder. Credit where credit's due. At least it's not the case that every female character is legally required to like this guy, so hey, points for that at least. But a second ago I said the good old isekai word. However, DANMACHI isn't one. It has a system like a damn good isekai though. Each character who is labeled as an adventurer has a thing on their back that looks like a tattoo that are used to gauge their stats, which are broken down in a video game-like style, even including being able to level up as a whole. Stats grow regardless of level, but when a level happens, it's no small feat. Most people being stuck in one level for years, but it's a great way to gauge stats. It's kind of like once you have the ability to level up, your god can give it to you and it's a massive buff to your stats. It's not a revolutionary way to do power scaling, but it works. When we're told so and so is level 4, we know in terms of stats they are stronger than whoever level 3 we're talking about, and so on and so forth. It works. But why do people want to level up? Well, of course, to explore the dungeon. What's a dungeon, I hear you ask? What? It's a dungeon, you know, the dungeon. It's like the big building? The dungeon's one of the biggest focuses of the series based on the fact that it makes up 8% of the series title. The dungeon is a deep underground labyrinth that gets more and more dangerous the deeper and deeper you go, and is the standard place to go as an adventurer. You go in there, be cool, and then monsters can either drop materials or they drop these crystals that can be sold for money. Very video game-esque and pretty simple. While again, not at all revolutionary, it's just easy to understand. When you see a big monster drop a big crystal, well, I'll be damned, that's probably like 50 bucks? I don't know money conversion rates. This seems like a delicate system that could be easily misbalanced by either decreasing the value of a Valvis, which is the DANMACHI dollar, or decreasing the value of the monster crystals. And I'm curious if anyone's ever looked into it. Here, I'm gonna Google monster inflation to see if anyone's ever looked this up. It's a cool location, but the variety is very few and far between. Like most forests are just caves with a one-off really cool set piece every once in a while. It can have a few really cool looking places. It kind of makes sense with how little time we've spent in here up until season 4, so fair is fair. It's a cool concept and it reminds me of how Sword Art Online's Get to the Top World was designed. And without even needing to be asked, it sets up fantastic questions for the series like why was it made, what's at the bottom, and where am I? And above all, it's honestly a genius idea for a recognizable skyline, which is a massive tower called Babel, which has a banger name, a banger design, and it's kind of part shopping mall and part guild thing where adventure business is done. You know what? First impressions is, well, that's lame, but it's a pretty smart use of public space. So if there's any reason to be upset at a question I offer ponder as the potential dubious moral nature of trying to meet a potential partner in Babel's basement, it's not city design. But we got all our chips on the board, characters, setting, all that good stuff. How is the series? Well, I didn't ironically watch over 4 seasons of a series just to be passive aggressive about the quality. Now first, I can't forget honestly one of my favorite parts of the series, and that is the fighting animation. I'm a big fan of when the punchy stuff looks really good. It's honestly one of the best ways to get me to rewatch or remember a show, and DANMACHI absolutely delivers on that front. Now is every single fight like, I don't know, studio map of level animation? Nah. You can kind of tell when a fight's important or not, but when it does kick off, oh my god, I love it so much. It's the perfect balance of believable and impressive choreography with exaggerated impacts. Like, this is stronger than humans are, more durable, quicker, all that stuff, but you can tell that, well, most people probably wouldn't be able to do as much if they weren't holding a weapon, which he uses beautifully. When the show comes up, this is honestly one of the first things I talk about. It makes dentist appointments a lot more fun. Is the series gonna have you on your knees crying or jumping out of your seat cheering or gasping so hard that your neighbors ask why you took all the air? No, and for the love of God, I hope not. But are episodes gonna fly by as you see Bell gain more and more interesting friends with their own specialties that cover his weaknesses while he becomes stronger at such a rapid rate that you don't know what's in or out of his weight class? Absolutely. The journey of Bell's growth is great to see. While his familia, which was more of a punchline than a fantasy guild type beat, actually ends up getting respect for his hard work and heroism. But it's not like you can predict what's gonna happen. There are times where Bell loses or just doesn't match up to his goal or gets in over his head. And when that's the case, you really feel like it's gotten serious. Of course, when you're on season 3, you got a pretty strong feeling that he probably isn't gonna dramatically die, but the tension is there. Even with his ability that is literally, oh, scary stuff, have a super strong attack, because it doesn't always work. And even when you get comfortable, the tone isn't afraid to shift right under your feet. We go from a kid wanting to impress a girl that he met in a dungeon and get stronger so he can stand with her, to a sentient monster physically ripping off its claws and wings as a symbolic gesture of showing their desire to live with humans. And these two vibes coexist shockingly well, because the higher up Bell and the Hestia Familia get, the more complicated and complex the issues can become. They get attention from evil higher up organizations like the IRS that tell them level 4s are a part of a different tax bracket. DANMACHI, also known as is a series that I watched when it first popped up, felt and moved on. But on my recent revisit, that honestly changed quite a bit. Are there things that don't really make sense? Sure, is it predictable at times? At least in the first 2 seasons. But is it a solid experience that can do well in multiple tones and moods, even catching you off guard and when you feel the weight of when the tone does shift? 100%. Hey, guess what's worse than using the first question you see as a philosophy assignment? Making the second one your advertising basis. I didn't think they were still using it.